Hey guys, I'm Rich from NeoWin. Today we're unboxing the Huawei Watch GT. So this is something that's a little different from wearables that we all know. I have a Apple Watch Series 4 right here, which is what I was using up until a couple of weeks ago. I've been using the Fossil Sport, which I love, but this doesn't run Apple's WatchOS, which obviously nothing does except Apple's Watch, or it doesn't run Wear OS. It actually runs Huawei's own Light OS, they're calling it. So one thing about it is that Huawei is promising weeks of battery life, which is a big deal for a smartwatch that has an AMOLED display, which is 1.39 inches. It's also super light. It's 46 grams. So let's get this box open. And I'm very interested. I'm very interested in smartwatches in general because I feel like we're still kind of trying to figure out what we want from smartwatches. I think the core functionality that you get from a smartwatch is being able to check your messages without taking out your phone. So everything does that. So how do you add value on top of that is the question. And you know, I think most companies go with apps, and there aren't a lot of apps that have a lot of actual value to them. I do appreciate navigation. Apple Maps on the Apple Watch and Google Maps on Wear OS is great when you're driving. You just kind of check your directions, but I don't know what else. So yeah, so pretty standard smartwatch style. I think the Fossil Sport is still lighter. This thing is incredibly light. But they're both very light. This is a little bigger, so I mean, if that's what you're into, if you want that kind of size. That's another issue with smartwatches is that particularly people with smaller wrists wouldn't maybe want something like this on them. But it's very nice, and I've seen it with the display on, and it's a pretty cool device. So let's just get this on, right? Yeah, so it feels nice just like that. Let's see what else is in the box. Okay, let's open this up. Sticker, and we've got a charger, which is a USB Type A to Type C cable, and then a pin charger. So the device does have 2 pins on the back for charging, which always kind of bums me out. Because in my experience with smartwatches that have that pin charging is that they get dirty over time. You sweat underneath there, and you might run into problems down the line charging the device. I always prefer wireless charging like the Moto 360 used to do. Why can't I get this thing back on the box? Or like the Apple Watch does. But yeah, a lot of companies like to stick to that pin charging. I'm not really sure why. I don't prefer it. Like there's some unique solutions, like the Fossil Sport actually uses a ring around the back, so it's not just those 2 little pins. Okay, so we're gonna boot this up and we're gonna check this out. All right, so we've got this booting up. This is gonna pair through the Huawei Health App, which is available for iOS and Android. I've reviewed several Huawei devices, you know, wearables that work through that app, and they will deliver notifications. You can have that kind of granular notification control, showing which apps are gonna send notifications and which ones won't. But you won't be able to do it on iOS. You will get your notifications, but you can't choose like which apps can deliver notifications. You're just gonna get whatever goes to your phone. So let's pair this Huawei Watch GT. All right, so I didn't actually have to scan that QR code. Pairing successful. Okay, and then auto download update packages. So I am not a fan of the watch face. This is the same thing that was on the Huawei Watch 2 that I reviewed a while back. Can we easily... All right, so it works very similarly to Wear OS. And let's go with this dark blue one. Okay, and then yeah, so we have our apps. Okay, as far as I know, there isn't another way to get more apps. So this is basically, again, that's that functionality. It all depends on what you want from a smartwatch, and you know, I'm not sure if you want more than this. Weather's there. I might end up missing GPS. That settings icon might literally be the iOS settings icon. But moving on. it does seem like a pretty cool device. So this got 45% battery right now. Huawei said weeks. What they said was up to 30 days if you're just, in watch mode, not doing anything. 22 hours if you're doing everything. That includes GPS, heart rate monitoring. Again, it has the heart rate monitor on the back. There are those two pins that you use to charge it. Okay, pretty standard band here. I think it's a 22 millimeter band, and you can swap it out with any other band that you want. It's pretty simple. Yeah, so heart rate. Huawei wasn't exactly clear about which processor is in it. They said it's a dual chipset, low power and high power, meaning pretty much like big little in phones. So it's a little bit more similar to what's in the Snapdragon 3100 than what's in the 2100, which doesn't have those big and little cores. So the idea behind that is that, and you can see that the screen goes to sleep really fast. But the idea is that to save battery life. So things that are happening in the background, use those little cores. They don't use as much battery life. It's not sucking down battery life when it's syncing a notification versus when it's using GPS, so it can use those more powerful cores for that. I'm kind of bummed that there's no ambient display that I'm seeing. We can go into settings and check display, watch face, brightness. So that's all we got there. It might be in the Huawei Health App. What I've seen with other Huawei devices that I've used is that it's often settings can be found in the Health App that aren't in. So we're going to turn on notifications. All right, and we want notification access and health. All right, and we go back. Oh yeah, so it's only notifications. So you can't have notifications off for an app on your phone and still have those show up on the watch. It's probably worth noting if it's not entirely surprising. Firmware update, that's new. Okay. Yeah, so we're going to update that right now. So the Huawei Health App is actually pretty good. I found it to be pretty good for fitness tracking. And if I go, if you go into the device, which I can't do right now because it's updating the firmware, we can go to our steps, and we go back to when I was reviewing the Band 3E or the Band 3 Pro. This was the Band 3E, so you can actually kind of just scroll through your steps, and there's always more information. Like this was 97% walking, 2% climb, 1% running. I don't work out that much. I should. But so yeah, and if you go to sleep, we can also scroll back to then. All right, so this is the average amount of sleep that I got that week was 6 hours and 8 minutes, and we can go through each day and see how much light sleep, deep sleep, and all that I got. So there's a lot of stuff in there. It's even more when it's up to date. So I think it's pretty good. I think it provides a lot more analytics than some other services. I find that some are a little bit harder to use. So this is still updating, but the screen is 1.39 inches, 454 by 454 AMOLED. So OLED is something that you really want on a watch, and I think most watches do have it. So the difference between an OLED and an LCD is that with OLEDs, the biggest difference you want to know is that pixels can be turned off. It says for organic light emitting diodes, if you want to know that too. Pixels can be turned off, so you get true black in the background. So if you have, say, a phone with an AMOLED display, and it has that black bezel, you don't actually see where the display ends and the bezel begins because it's true black. So on top of the true black, colors are rendered on top of that true black instead of a backlight. So they tend to look more vibrant instead of washed out. And the reason you really want that on a watch is because if you have some kind of ambient display, which this one doesn't seem to have, you don't see a whole backlight around the entire display. So like if I look at the Fossil Sport here, this is OLED as well. The Apple Watch is OLED also. But so that's the ambient display. So the whole display isn't bright. It's just that number and the brand on there that's lit up. So looking at the changelog here, it's almost done installing, I promise. New watch faces, guidelines, supports longer messages. New messages show details directly. That's great. Support message reminds right sliding to exit. Optimizing incoming call. Message clock alarm experience. Optimize compass color calibration. All right, but it doesn't say anything about an ambient display, so hopefully there's some settings that I'm missing, and we'll catch that in the time that I review it over the next few weeks. It's actually going to be it's going to be a few more days before I actually start using this. I have to finish writing the Fossil Sport review first. The problem with smartwatches is that you can only review one at a time. Okay, so it has finished transferring. I assume it's installing. Oh, there we go. So the Huawei Watch GT is 10.6 millimeters thin, which is pretty small for a smartwatch. And we can kind of put them next to the Fossil Sport here, and we can see that it's around the same. One thing that I do not like is watches that are over half an inch thick. If you have the Huawei Watch Sport, that was massive. So I'm pleased to see watches that are fairly small, at least on the side of thickness. 16 megabytes of RAM, 128 megabytes of storage. So there's not a lot going on here. You're not going to store your music on here, all right? And you're not going to install apps. So it's really not meant for that. By the way, these are better specs than like the Band 3 Pro or the Band 3E, which would have like a megabyte of RAM. All right, so this finally installed after sending so long to install that 8 megabyte firmware update. So sleep, this is just going to show you your sleep because it does it automatically. You don't have to turn it on, although you can turn on in settings or in the Huawei Health App whether you want it to track your sleep. Heart rate, workout status. Okay, let's see how the weather goes, because I'm kind of... Oh, so it knows my location already, which is great. It knows the... so yeah. So we got system. We do have some new settings in there. Do not disturb, which is good. One thing I did not like about the Band 3 Pro, the Band 3E, was that you had to go into the Health app to turn on Do Not Disturb, or you could schedule it, which was a real pain when I went to sleep and I had to go into the app and actually turn this off. So that's pretty cool. And then about just some information about the device. All right, and that's the Huawei Watch GT. Okay, so here's the catch. This thing is over $200. Now, the reason I just say over $200, I don't give you an exact price, is because if you go to Huawei's website and you click the buy button, it gives you a list of regions where you can buy it, and there's no North American regions on there. So just a quick Google search found some in the range between like $200 and $240. So over $200. You're missing a lot of the features that you get with these guys. You're missing GPS. You're missing out on the Google Play. There's a Google Play Store on the watch. So even if you're using it with iOS, you still get all the apps that you want. So that also means you're kind of missing the ability to send messages, because this has a Facebook Messenger app. So if someone sends me a message, I can reply through this. I probably won't be able to here. You might not need to, though, because like I said, the main functionality of a smartwatch is to get notifications, and you'll get your notifications. It's going to do fitness really well as well, because that Huawei Health App is actually really good. So you're missing out on that functionality, but what you really need to want is the battery life, because weeks of battery life, which is what Huawei is promising, is a big deal. This one, both of these actually, I get about the same battery life with both of these. I charge them overnight after using them all day, and they're down to maybe 45-50%. So you can probably stretch either 1 to 2 days. That's it. You're dead after that. And neither of them support sleep tracking. Sleep tracking is a feature that I'm kind of iffy on. I like the way that Huawei does it. I think they do a great job. But I've also found that devices, when you can... There's another update available? Seriously? But well, we're updating again. But I found that when you track your sleep, or when I track my sleep, I find myself thinking I didn't get enough sleep. Because if I get 4 hours of sleep, I like to get a good 8 hours. If I get 4 hours of sleep, I'm fine. if I know that I got 4 hours of sleep, I'm not. So it's a psychological thing, but it's real for me at least. So I might. I mean, obviously, you just take it off before you go to bed if you don't want sleep tracking. But it's just the point that you can wear this constantly. One of the reasons that sleep tracking is not a priority for either of these devices is because you have to charge them so often, and the most sensible way to charge your devices that need to be charged as often are at night while you're sleeping. So I'm gonna have a review for this. I'm gonna say 3 weeks. Hoping to get the Fossil Sport review out this weekend, and then I'll be on to the Huawei Watch GT, which should be a lot of fun. So that's it. I'm Richard Neowin. Have a great night.